have 2 front and 2 back. The ones that are back are the ones with the darts. So we have 4 pieces total that we're working with today as legs, and then we're also going to be working with waistband and leg band, which are other pieces that come into play. So your long piece, we're going to line up, basically it's not a perfectly straight line on many trousers, like modern trousers it is, but you're going to line up your longer line. Each of them have kind of a little little square, little rectangle dude down here. We're going to stitch a basic seam from here to here on these.
So to the edge of that rectangle.
Basically to the little, this is called a placket, as well as a little rectangle, just to be technical. Just for me to be technical about it. But it's a placket where the little buttons are going to go to kind of like give it that period detail of buttoning down at the calf. So yeah, you're going to sew basically to like right here, right above it, where it starts. And you're going to do the same thing over here. So you're ignoring the curved side for now. We're just doing the relatively long straight side down to where the placket starts. So same thing, exact same thing. When you're sewing on the back, you already have an inside established, right? A wrong side established, even if your sides are, if your fabric is on both sides. So dart and seams should be facing the same way. You don't want your darts pointing out on the outside. Yeah? So that's step 1. We're just gonna do it now. And I am using that exact same guideline that we've been using, which is the one that's just past the foot. And I put my sewing machine to 5 because I was doing gathering stitches, so 3.5. You're always, for everything we're doing today, I think you're gonna want an anchor stitch. I don't think we have anything going on that isn't gonna call for an anchor stitch. So anchor stitch. And then we're applying in real time the standard seam that we learned and practiced on our first sewing machine day. Good morning. Breathe. Breathe. And I'm stopping right about when I hit that level of the placket, going back a little bit and forward a little bit to anchor it at both ends. So we want to have that anchor stitch on both ends. Scissors. What I should have said is if you're a normal, sane person, you can go ahead and pin these together. You don't have to just do it completely without pins like I just did. Why did I don't know. I mean, when how I decide whether or not I'm using pins is when I hold it up, is it kind of sticking where it's supposed to be? And then go based on that. So that was purely an instinctive, not deliberate, that I did to not use pins, but your fabric may be different and you are also, most of you at more of a starting level, so you may want to pin it. I'm gonna go ahead and pin this one just to not be a jerk. So because these were cut out as pairs, exactly like we just showed, they were a folded over fabric that were cut out together, they should line up pretty much perfectly. Anything that's not cut like that is never gonna line up as perfectly, it's just gonna not be, which means sometimes we're kind of like wiggling it around a little bit to get it to look as nice. So if I was gonna pin it, this is about what I would do, which for me is about a hand's width apart, which is usually fine unless you're on a tight curve, just to like give you enough stability there. And do the same thing. Forward a little bit. Down to where the rectangle of the placket starts. Another anchor stitch. Pull it away, and then you can go ahead and pull out your pins. You can pull out your pins as you sew. You're totally welcome to do that. There is an offshoot chance that every now and then your needle will happen to, by pure misfortune, land directly on, your needle will come down on the pin will bend, the needle will probably break. It happens. It's not a big deal if it does, so it's kind of like, technically the most correct thing is to remove your pin right when it's like just about to go under the foot. Just know that it's a risk. It does happen. I've never seen it hurt someone. So this is how we end up with a side to a pair of pants. Now let's start to look at how these are going.
Did you do it wrong?
Probably fucking did. Hold on. Thinking. I sure did. This is why I shouldn't teach 9 a.m. classes. Hold on.
You do.
Yeah. Okay, so we I paired them up identically. That's not what we want to do. Hold on.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah, I
right.
was like, well, cause last unit I never made pants.
Oh, that's right. You made a
I
skirt.
made a skirt and then I made a dress. So I never made.
Pardon. Okay, so process that we're going to do is exactly the same. It's just different pieces going together. What I just did tearing it like that, you can totally do on most new fabrics. You can't do it on older fabrics because a lot of times, or more delicate fabrics, so you can't do that
Yeah,
at
because
all.
I was like, I had to like
Don't do
seam,
it.
like I had to seam rip it, and I was like, oh, I wish I could just like rip it apart, but I can't. And I was just like slowly, carefully doing it, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, you're gonna, yeah. I often do a tear as a test. Like I do a little tear and then I'm like, oh, it worked, and then I just do the whole thing. But this is also one of the reasons that we do a slightly looser stitch, which is 3.5, because it lets us do that, which is way faster than what you're probably gonna end up having to do, just pick out stitches like really slowly. So same thing, it's just that we're gonna be matching up one front to one back, which I absolutely know, but apparently not before, like noon. So, I now have one front and one back. You're gonna match up the top corners. And now they won't do that thing where they're lying really nicely together, which means even if I was alone, I would still pin this because they don't automatically kind of stick together in one thing, they weren't cut together. And then you're gonna go down and you're gonna see, and on some of these may not line up completely because I was kind of altering patterns as I went. That's okay, go with the lower one. If one is lower and one is higher, go with the lower one. Does that make sense? One is lower, one is higher, go with the lower one. That's that's the one that's real. And you're gonna go ahead and pin down there. See, I love when I'm the first person to mess up completely in a day. Because I feel like it just takes the pressure off everyone else, right? And you're gonna see the curves aren't as completely like just naturally falling together. So you're gonna do like a little bit of munging as you pin. Some of them will go together perfectly, some of them are kinda gonna like be a little bit off from each other. Instead of pinning from top to bottom, I tend to go like towards the middle and spread outwards in chunks so that I know that I'm dispersing that kind of evenly across the seam. Does that make sense? So I won't necessarily go like exactly hands width apart, one. I'll just kind of go these two. Okay, now that's dispersed nicely. Now I'll go in between them, create like this middle line. So that's what we should have actually done from the start. We're going to do this on both sides. And we're going to do the exact same thing. I wouldn't make you watch me do the same thing to the other side, except we are going to attach them together. That's the choice we have to do the whole thing. Alright, so this is going to be a moment where we stop to make sure we have a left side and a right side. Yes. So I'm going to lay them out like this, and I'm going to look at the one that I just sewed. Because what I theoretically want is one facing each direction. So I want plackets facing outward in both directions, and I want to make sure that I haven't swapped it so that I have two facing the exact same direction, because that means I'm making two right or two left legs. And good news, it seems to have worked. You'll also notice here there's a little bit of a chunkiness in here, which was just how much fabric we had of this, had a little chunk out here. This is one of the reasons I gave this one to myself. You shouldn't have that, but I gave this to myself so that I could patch that, but see that I'm lining it up here and starting sewing right here, instead of where there isn't fabric there, because there really is supposed to be fabric. Yep. That's way longer. one of the things that we'll all be working with is that we started with base patterns that were altered as we went through to get enough of a range of sizes, and also some of the things that we needed for theatrical purposes, such as movement, which means some things that theoretically, if we had taken a lot of time to draft extra patterns, would line up really perfectly, aren't going to. We're going to learn to improvise through that. That's part of one of the things that just tends to happen with theatrical builds, ensemble builds like this. Cross your fingers. Okay. Go back here to the seam. Anchor stitch. And just because this is the kind of day that I've been having, I 100% believe that somehow I managed to make 2 left legs anyway. Like, that's gonna happen. Just seems on brand. Hey, Carolyn, do you need me to take a pause and help you get you a next step?
Yeah.
Great.
I think a couple of us have questions about the fabric or what we're doing.
Great. Okay, Team Pants, go ahead and pause that. Take a 5.